Welcome back, everyone. I'm Crystal Sodaitis, your host of Luxury Cruising, and I'm really excited today to talk with Sherri, who is going to share with us her experience on Seabourn. And Sherri, tell people who you are and remind me which Seabourn ship you were on.
Okay. Well, my name is Sherri Wattenberger, and I live in Kansas City. I consider myself to be a very knowledgeable world traveler. My husband and I have traveled extensively all around the world, but I don't consider myself to be a cruise aficionado. In fact, other than the Seabourn cruise that we took in May, we'd only been on one other cruise, which was a disaster, and we swore off cruising then for our lifetime until I decided that we might try a luxury cruise.
Awesome. That is definitely something we have to hear about. So tell us, what made you decide to, try cruising one more time, and what led to your decision to try Seabourn?
We are going on a trip to Greece and Turkey. And my husband and I have determined that we really don't like to do any trips where we just have 1 day here, 2 days there, 1 day here, because we don't like the process of having to pack up and move hotels. And so usually if we go to Europe, we'll stay 5 days somewhere and we'll take a lot of day trips around. And then we'll move to a new location, do the same thing. Really, 3 is kind of our minimum. So when I was looking at trying to see the Greek islands, I thought, how are we going to see that in a short amount of time, like 2 weeks, without just hopping around day to day? And so that's what led me to think about maybe we would try a cruise again. But what I don't like about the big big cruise lines is I don't like the idea of being with the mass of people,
Yeah.
especially after COVID. I just don't like the idea of being with that many people. Plus, I don't like to be at a port where suddenly a ship belches off 3,000 to 5,000 people, and then you're fighting with all the tourists. So I definitely started looking at cruise lines that had, say, 300 to 600 people per cruise, no more than that.
Yeah.
And I did a lot of research on the various luxury cruises. I really like to do all my own trip research because I love traveling and I love to know a lot about the destination. And so by the time I contacted a travel agent, I had narrowed it down to Seabourn or Windstar.
What was the middle one? Seabourn or Windstar? Those two.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. I just want to pause there for a second because I think it's really important that you said a couple of really important things, and that is you you did your own research and you narrowed down what you were looking for. I do think that the luxury cruise small ship experience is unique, and it is a nice way to see islands, especially often you can get into smaller islands. It definitely gives you a much different feel than those massive cruise ships that's like, just like you said, like 6,000 people. And suddenly this island that has like 3,000 people as their general population is now tripled in size. It's just a completely different feel. But then once you knew what you wanted, you still used a travel agent, which I think, especially for cruising, is really important.
I do too. I actually did research on that topic in and of itself because often I don't use travel agents. When I plan our trips to Europe, I usually don't use a travel agent. I use Rick Steves and I use my own experience. But when I'm doing something that I haven't done before or something unusual or sort of has a unique niche in the market, I like to use a travel agent. So the first thing I did was read about should you use a travel agent to book your cruise? And the answer was every source I looked at, definitely.
Definitely.
They're going to be your advocate. They're going to know things about cruising that you don't. And I'm very happy that I used a travel agent. And actually, the first thing that she did was talk to me about the difference between a Windstar cruise and a Seabourn cruise, and to ask questions about what particularly I was looking for, what made a difference to my husband and me. and she helped steer me. And I think she steered me absolutely in the right direction.
Yeah, that is a sign of a good travel agent, is they really listen to what you're looking for. Was your travel agent, did she specialize in small ship or luxury cruising? Or was this just someone you know, maybe a travel agent you had used before and decided to continue, use them again?
She was not somebody I used before, and I found her through doing some just Google searches. And I will say that I think the one that I use sort of specializes in cruising, but not necessarily luxury cruises. Although, again, she steered me absolutely in the right direction. But I think if I were going to do it again, I might try to find someone who really just stays in the space of luxury cruises.
Yeah. So what was it that you read or she said about Seabourn that really made you decide like this is it? Maybe was it the ship, the itinerary, all of the above?
It was two main things. The first one is that every single room is a balcony room. Every room has a balcony outside the room. The second thing is it's truly all inclusive, which WinStar is not.
So nice.
And I really wanted something where I didn't have to worry about what does this drink cost or what does this service cost. There's only two things that aren't included on Seabourn. One is the spa, and that's always going to be extra.
Reasonable.
And the
right.
other one is excursions. Some luxury cruises include the excursions, some do not. Most do not. If they do, you pay a lot more for the cruise, I think. But other than that, and it's absolutely no tipping. No tipping expected. It really is no tipping. I mean, sort of. You can always tip if you want to, but it's not the least bit expected or the custom of anyone on Seabourn to tip. I love that. Just tell me what the price is and I'll pay it.
Right, right. And it's amazing to find yourself walking off this absolutely beautiful, luxurious experience and your account is zero. Nothing gets, there isn't this like surprise, extraordinary bill at the end of you've paid it all off and it's done.
Yeah. And let me give you another tip because this is what I did and it worked out so well for us. Part of it was just lucky timing for me, but I had started to look at these cruises in the fall of last year and I was getting close to narrowing it down right sometime in November. Well, they have Black Friday specials just like everybody else does. We got a cabin upgrade and $500 per person shipboard credit to use, which you can use for the spa, for the excursions, or in the shop. And I thought that was really lucky. It made the very affordable.
Yeah, when you put it all together, especially people are, these days on a contemporary cruise line, your drink package on sale can be $60 to $75. So if you're somebody who tends to, get the drink package, that's going to be, times 7. Like, what is that? That's over $600. Somebody do the math for me, right? And then you add on the Wi-Fi, which is like $20, $25 a day.
I just didn't want it to be nickel and dime to death. I also didn't want to have to worry about what is this costing me. I wanted a luxury cruise. I wanted to feel luxurious. I wanted not to worry. And it was wonderful.
That's amazing. So tell us about the ship. What was it like walking onto the ship, the decor?
So first of all, as I said, we only had one other experience with a cruise, and it was Norwegian. And this was so 100% different. So we didn't have an exact check-in time told to us. We were just told, you can come anytime after this time. And when we checked in, someone took our bags. We were the only people checking in. They handed us champagne. They just took our passports. It was a few minutes, and then we walked on the ship.
Beautiful.
I mean, lovely, right? And then, and the ship had only 600 passengers. I think almost as many crew. You went into the main place that is called the Colonnade, where you have breakfast every day, and that's where the lunch was until your room was available. Now, again, with my one experience with the prior, I took an extra bag with my swimsuit and some things I would need, thinking we wouldn't have our luggage for quite a while.
Yeah.
Again, no. We had our luggage at our room by the time we got down there, which was just after lunch. So
Beautiful.
completely different kind of experience from the check-in process for open cruise.
And was the lunch a sit-down lunch, or was it a buffet, a plated meal? How was that
It was a
embarkation lunch?
big buffet, all kinds of different dishes and open seating inside and out, alcohol if you wanted it. It was delicious. It was wonderful.
Awesome. Awesome. And so the upgraded balcony room, how was
Right.
that? How was that?
Wonderful. Let me put it this way. We had a walk-in closet in our room. So nice. We also had a, I think what they call butler, but I'd call more of a concierge for our room. And they checked in with us right away and asked us what alcohol we'd like in our room. And you could literally pick 2 bottles per day. My
Wow.
husband got a high-end single malt scotch, and I got a bottle of wine. We don't drink a bottle of booze
Yeah.
a day, thankfully.
Yeah.
And that's why I can remember the cruise. But if we had wanted to get one of those per day, we could have stocked up a huge liquor
Wow.
cabinet
Your
by
own
the
liquor
time
cabinet.
we
Your
went.
own liquor cabinet. So you had the
It
butler and a beautiful room.
We had a beautiful balcony. We had a king-size bed and a sitting area and a very large bathroom that had double sinks, a large bathtub, and a large shower. It was granite. It had premium bath products. It was, again, just top notch.
Gorgeous. And I don't think you mentioned, how long was this cruise?
Ours was only a 7-day cruise. We picked it because we just weren't sure whether we would enjoy the cruise, so we started with something a little shorter. I think if I were going to do it again, I think I'd love to have 10 days. My husband commented that he thought maybe 14 might be too long for us, but depends on where you're going and what you can do when you get off. I would definitely go 10 the next time because I almost wanted to cry when it was time to get off.
Yeah. I was just wondering how many days of clothing you needed for that walk-in closet.
Yeah, I had everything that I wanted.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure that it was an actual king-size bed, not 2 twin beds that were pushed together. So was the bed comfortable? Did it face the balcony?
It did not face the balcony. It was perpendicular to the balcony, but that allowed you to have the great room that was your sitting area, which was really not small. It was large enough that you could sit there and read. You could have a room service delivered. Oh, and of course, that's another thing about Seabourn. They really do live up to what they advertise, which is that you can get champagne and caviar 24/7 wherever you want it. And
if you wanted a champagne caviar midnight snack, no problem.
And we did.
Good for you. Good for you. That's awesome. So what else was there to do in the evenings? Like, how was the evening entertainment?
The evening entertainment was fine. I would say for me, that was the one thing that I think could be improved a little bit, but recognize that I'm going to say the average age on board was probably about in the mid 70s, maybe 72, 75. And not a lot of people stayed up late. But they had a staff of performers that would do a variety of different shows. They did a disco night the first night we were on, and we stayed up and danced, and everybody else who was under 80 stayed up too.
It's good to have a crew, with 600 people. You want at least some people that are going to be active and fun, and it helps with the general atmosphere. But yeah, especially if you're getting through a bottle of single malt scotch and wine every day, you're not staying up till midnight for the disco.
No, I would say the other thing, they had a couple of other special performers. One was a pianist who was famous, but I didn't know them. And we didn't go to that, but that person performed twice during the 7 days we were on. There was a casino. It wasn't very large, but we walked by it on the way to the bar where the performers did the live music, and it always looked full of people having fun. I would say the biggest draws for the evening were the restaurants. And that's where people tended to linger because the food was really outstanding.
Yeah. Tell us about, was there, I suppose there's at least a main dining room. And then were there also specialty dining rooms? Or how did that work?
Yes. There's a main dining room where you can eat every night and you don't need a reservation ahead of time. The menu was extensive and changed. There was a specials page every night that changed. And then there were a wide variety of options that stayed the same every night. This, you could get a burger and fries, but this was no burger and fries kind of thing. It was really nice, high-end restaurant type food. And then there was a Thomas Keller restaurant on board.
Yeah.
You had to have reservations for the Thomas Keller restaurant, and you were only allowed to have a reservation there once in your 7-day period. I should mention this cruise went on longer than 7 days. It picked up people at various ports who were doing maybe 14 days or 21 days. Because
interesting.
Yeah.
So it was more like, there's a word for it. It's like dynamic boarding or dynamic embarkation or something like that, where people get on at different ports and people get off at different ports. Not everyone's
Right.
like everyone is getting out on Monday and then getting off on the following Monday.
It seemed like people they all got on a Sunday, but you got on different days so that some people were on for 14 or 21 days and other people were just on for 7. That's why I say I wanted to cry when we had to get off because the cruise continued to go on to other islands. So it was like a kid being told they had to leave the playground.
Yeah.
So
did you have a chance to eat in the Thomas Keller restaurant?
Oh, yeah. It was wonderful. It was wonderful. And we actually were able to skirt around the rule and eat there twice in our 7 days, which had to do with there being a big excursion offshore that we didn't go to, which left that restaurant fairly empty. And then a gentleman that we met earlier invited us to be his guest at his reservation that he already had. And so not only did we get to enjoy the food, we got to enjoy his company. And, the people that you meet, I was worried, having not been on a luxury cruise, that you might have some stuffy people who that they think they're better than other people or look down at you if you're not dressed the right way. I didn't find that at all. And
Nice.
One of the points that a long-term sea cruiser made to me is that really, except for a couple of penthouse suites, almost all the rooms on Seabourn are about the same. And so you don't have this tiered idea that some people are better than others, which makes people relax and not need to prove anything. The woman who told me that actually has been to 690 ports with Seabourn.
Wow.
And she had more jewelry on at the pool. I bet it was worth more than my house. She was just a lovely person and gave me some inside tips about things. So I really enjoyed the whole clientele and getting to know some of the interesting people. We met our first throuple.
Your first what?
Throuple.
Which is what?
A threesome couple.
Wow. They all travel together. They're sort of like in a long-term committed relationship of 3.
Yeah.
All kinds. So that's a really good point, is like people do have this perception of these higher end cruises like Seabourn, where yes, the average age may be, 75 or 80, but that these people are just going to be, either boring or standoffish or just very, snooty. And that's not the case. They're just like other cruisers. They just want to enjoy their life and see the island and, I guess have more than one long-term partner.
I guess if that's your thing.
Yeah.
were okay. They were okay with this. And they were in their 50s and they were from Dallas. So that's not where I would have thought my first throuple that I met would come from.
There you go. And we learned a new vocabulary word today. We are full service here at Luxury Cruising. So tell me about these excursions. Did you do any of the cruise line excursions?
We did 2 excursions. I thought they were well done. The groups were not overly large. I mean, just to put it in perspective, I think the first excursion that we did, we may have had 20 people in our excursion. And the second one we did, I think we had 12. So that gives you a lot of one-on-one time. You're not struggling to hear, you're not struggling to see. I think just very well done.
Did you find, because you mentioned, you don't get to this island and all of a sudden there's like this mega ship that also it has just, deposited 3,000, 5,000 people on there. Did you find, first tell us where you went, what were the ports, and do you find that other larger ships couldn't even get into if they wanted to?
Yeah, one of the reasons that I picked Seabourn is because a smaller ship can get into ports that other big cruise lines can't. They'd have to tender you up.
Mm-hmm.
And we did some tenders, but they tended to be really short tenders. And we didn't see a lot of other ships in the ports when we were there. In fact, I can only think of 1 or 2 of the 7 places where we docked where I even saw another ship.
Yeah, that's so nice.
I'm not going to be able to necessarily tell you the exact names of the towns where we visited, but we left Athens and went to Sparta and then Crete and then Mykonos. And then we went to 2 ports on the Turkish Riviera, which are Ephesus and Chesme.
Nice.
And then we went back to Athens.
Nice. I hear Ephesus is just breathtaking.
It's unbelievable. You cannot believe the ruins have stayed that well preserved and that they're so large.
Definitely on my list. I've been to Turkey, but only to Istanbul, not to Ephesus. And so definitely on my list to get there.
I think Turkey was wonderful. And what I find is funny about people is everyone just falls over themselves telling you how much they love Greece or want to go to Greece, but nobody says anything about Turkey. And look, it's just on the other side of the Aegean. So the coastal areas of Turkey are just like Greece. They're just as beautiful. And the culture is very similar. I mean, the fact that it's a Muslim country changes a little bit, but it's a secular Muslim country. We felt very comfortable and welcome there. The Turkish people are extremely kind and welcoming people.
I agree. So you mentioned your personal concierge. Any other areas on the ship where the service was like, you could just tell it was just a step above?
I think all of it was. I remember the way that they greeted you when you would get back on the boat. They would welcome you by name. If you had a request, all you had to do was make it, and they would try to make it happen. We celebrated an anniversary while we were on the ship. We had told our travel agent we were actually celebrating our 20th anniversary. So when we got back to our room that night, they had put rose petals everywhere and left a champagne and a cake in our room to give us a anniversary celebration there. So it was just very nice.
That's amazing. That's fantastic.
The other restaurant I didn't mention was the sushi restaurant. You could go to the sushi restaurant every day for lunch and every day for dinner if you wanted to. I thought the service in that restaurant was just exceptional. Women, they all happened to be women who worked there, and they were the kindest, happiest to see you. Just a wonderful personal touch they each gave.
That's great. Amazing. So I want to take a step back from this particular cruise and ask you, how do you define luxury?
That's a good question. So I guess it all starts from your own perspective. And I should say, I grew up with parents who just graduated from high school, and we didn't have very much money. We would not have ever gone on a trip like this when I was a kid. And we were lucky if we got to go to, a trip where you flew on an airplane. Most of the time we drove from Kansas City to St. Louis and went to Six Flags over Mid-America or something like that. But I am a lawyer, and we have gotten used to traveling into some really nice luxury hotels. And so I would say, I think I care about my surroundings being beautiful, and I care about um, being greeted and being treated as if it matters to the person that I'm there and that I chose them for my vacation. And this is something that I have a choice about.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that food, we're kind of foodies. And so we're not going to be satisfied with, my husband would, with burgers and fries every night, but I'm not going to be. And truly, we like food that's imaginative and interesting tastes put together. I collect wine, so I like that I can have access to good wine without
Yeah.
having to pay for being nickel and dimed every glass of wine
Right.
that I have.
Right. Right. Did your Seabourn trip meet that expectation?
It
Good.
did.
That's fantastic. Do you have any other luxury travel planned, cruise or otherwise?
Um, we are getting ready. The trip that I'm planning for us right now is that we're going to go to Rwanda and see the gorillas. And then when we're finished with that, we're going to go to the beach in Tanzania, Zanzibar.
Yeah. And is that going to be more like a glamping, more of a luxurious lodge kind of a setup?
Yes. Yes, it will be like a high-end safari. We've been to one safari already in Africa, and so it's going to be at a very nice lodge. And I'm most excited about seeing the gorillas. This has been on my bucket list for quite some time.
Yeah. That sounds absolutely amazing. Do you think you'll cruise again?
I do. I actually keep looking at the Seabourn and some of the other luxury cruises to see where they go. I think that it might be interesting to go to Southeast Asia because you can easily go to a lot of ports on Vietnam and Thailand area without doing a lot of land travel. So I think that might be a good area. I also think it might be a good way to hit a number of countries in Scandinavia.
Yeah. And you know what? I'm just looking something up. I think I heard something about Seabourn. They're building a hotel in the southernmost tip of South America. Facilitate cruises to Antarctica. So
They
as
do
we're
the
recording this,
excursions.
pardon?
They do the excursion trips like that.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
those are different from the luxury that I think you'd still have luxury, but I certainly thought that one of the nicest things was setting out by the pool after we got back from doing whatever sightseeing we did, and and towards the end of the day in the afternoon, sitting by the pool. And I don't think I'd be sitting by the pool in Antarctica.
That's true. That's true. But I'm not sure if it was them or not. I'll have to double check as we're recording this in early October of 24. But I think I just heard that it was Seabourn that's starting to build that hotel so that you don't have to go through the Drake Passage, which has rough seas and causes a lot of people to have seasickness. Well, this was super fun. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I really appreciate you being here, and have an amazing time in Rwanda.
Well, thank you very much.